Thank you, Senator Carper. Anybody else like to speak to the bill before we move on to amendments? I'd like to bring up amendment number 1. It's a Johnson-Baldwin amendment now. It's a pretty simple amendment. Requires the Office of Inspector General to post reports, investigations, and audits on their website within 3 days of it being submitted in final form to the head of an agency. There's been some confusion. The current IG Act requires them to be made publicly available, which does not really require them to post it. And so we're just trying to make sure that for the purpose of transparency, IGs must post this on their website within 3 days of giving them to the agency head. Senator Baldwin, would you like to speak to this at all? Or?
No, I am in full agreement. Is this working now? Great. I'm proud to be a co-sponsor of this amendment with you, and also looking forward to giving some further detail about an amendment coming up further in the queue that I think clearly respond to some instances we've been experiencing in the state of Wisconsin where greater transparency is absolutely needed, and just fully support and would ask the committee to unanimously accept Chairman Johnson's amendment.
Thank you, Senator Baldwin. Any other discussion on this amendment? If there is no further debate on the amendment, the question is on its adoption. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes definitely have it. The amendment is agreed to. The second amendment is a Johnson-McCaskill amendment, and this really is just clarifying, really the amount of money being authorized. When the original bill was prepared, it was based on some cost estimates from the House bill, and so we've gone back to SGAC to find out exactly what this bill actually is going to be costing. And it's actually lower than the original bill, but it does represent some increases in spending over the next few years, which I think are well justified, about $900,000 in fiscal year 2016, and then between $300,000 and $400,000 increases every year after that. So that's really all this amendment does, is just authorize the amount of money for that. Any further discussion on this amendment? If there's no further debate on the amendment, the question is on its adoption. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any other amendments?
I have an amendment. I'd like to bring. Senator Sass could not be here today. He had pulled together an amendment just dealing with the grant recipients and the subpoena power extending to those grant recipients. Obviously, there are many agencies that have more dollars in grants than they do in contracts now. This is a growing issue. This allows the Inspector General to also be able to reach into. My understanding, it's a non-controversial one as well. Just include some of those grant areas as well. So I'd like to be able to bring that forward as well.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? I am, by the way, supportive of this amendment.
As am I.
Very good. If there's no further debate on the amendment, the question is on its adoption. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it, and the amendment is agreed to. Are there any further amendments? Senator Baldwin.
Thank you. I would like the committee to consider the Baldwin-Johnson amendment. I guess it's, I don't have a number for it.
Number 1. I think it's your number 1.
No, that was the Johnson-Baldwin.
No, this is a Baldwin-Johnson. Which
yes.
They both have a good ring to it, quite honestly.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
This is your first one, so.
Yes, thank you. And I want to thank you for working on this amendment with me, as well as the authors of the underlying bill. Let me just explain briefly what the amendment does and why it's so critically needed. This amendment improves oversight of federal departments by improving the transparency and process in which inspectors general share their report. And much of this came to light, the need for these changes, because of ineffective communication between the Department of Veterans Affairs and the VA OIG, and failed oversight with regard to a medical facility in the state of Wisconsin at Toma. In this particular case, the VA Office of Inspector General completed a report that uncovered troubling practices at the Toma VA Medical Center and provided recommendations, but only provided those recommendations to the local and regional entity known as VISN 12. However, the report and these recommendations were never reported to the Department of Veterans Affairs, Secretary Bob McDonald, congressional committees or jurisdictions, committees of jurisdictions, or the public. And what's more, the initial report was requested by a member of the House of Representatives, and the VA Office of Inspector General failed to even provide the completed report to that member of Congress. Instead, it was left largely to the local facility to implement recommended changes without any oversight from the Secretary of the Department. The failure of the VA OIG to appropriately share this report, and the fact that the VA leadership in Washington was apparently unaware of problems at the facility at Toma, is really, it's just simply unacceptable, and it calls out for congressional action, and specifically this amendment will address some of those failures. My amendment would require that recommendations made by an Inspector General during investigations, audits, or other reports to be sent directly to the head of the agency or department. In addition, those recommendations would be made available to the public and submitted directly to the relevant congressional oversight committees. And lastly, if the Inspector General initiated an investigation based on information provided by an individual, the recommendations would also be shared with that individual. So these are first steps, and we have a lot more work to do, but I think this amendment is a very valuable amendment in increasing both accountability and transparency. And I would ask for the committee's unanimous acceptance of the Baldwin-Johnson amendment.
Thanks, Senator Baldwin. Again, I do appreciate the fact that you've offered this. I think it definitely improves the bill and basically responds to something that came up in our state. And I think this is exactly what this committee is supposed to do, is we should react to circumstances within the agencies and what we see. So again, I'm fully supportive of it. Anybody else wish to speak to this amendment?
No, I think it's a good amendment. I urge its adoption. Thank you. It's just good to see both of you working together like this.
And anyone else? If there is no further debate on the amendment, the question is on its adoption. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed, nay. In the opinion of the Chair, the ayes have it. The amendment is agreed to. Thank you, Senator McCaskill. Normally when we get our voting member, there's